Right, let's get into it. Let's look at the game. Prerequisite, not a particularly big deal of a tournament. There's 44 players, all juniors from my county, and I'm the highest rated person in the top division, making me the highest rated person in the tournament. So I was fairly confident going into it. There's one person close to my rating, I believe, but my division ranges between 1800 and my rank 2220-ish. I got the pairings. My opponent is, I think, 15. My opponent is rated 1900 on Leechess. And I was a bit nervous going into it, because when you play a lower rated opponent, it's far more intimidating, to me at least, because there's more at stake, you know? It's a bit scarier. So I was a bit nervous before the game. I didn't do much prep beforehand until maybe about an hour before the game, when I put my opponent's Leechess into opening tree, and I looked at his openings and I saw they only played e4, and I'm fairly predictable in my repertoire. I'm always going to play c5 against e4. I put my own name into opening tree, and my number one opening at the moment is still the Caracal from the first, like, 1900 elo I gained. Because I only played the Caracal until I was about 1900. And I've got about 1022 games in the Caracal. But underneath that is a Sicilian with just over 1000 games as well. So I've just about caught up. So I figured if my opponent was preparing for me, he's going to prepare a Sicilian. He's going to look through my recent games. Every game I play against e4 is the Sicilian, where I only play c5 and move 1. So I thought I would just, you know, give myself a bit of a chance if he's going to just sweat out like 20 moves of theory and beat me in the opening, because he's going to easily be able to prepare against me. I figured I would switch to the Caracal and just play the Caracal in this game and go with it, because fuck it. But I looked at his openings, and against the Caracal, he always played the advanced Caracal. And I would normally go for the bishop f5 lines, but I figured I would try something a bit new, something I have played before, which is the early c5 on move 3. So that was my plan going into it. He was very linear in the moves he played, and he had like 10 games in these lines, and he played the same moves every game. So he was fairly easy to prepare against. Something that did get me a bit nervous before the game, so just before I actually get into it, is my opponent has an account linked in his profile to his old account, which got banned for violating terms of service. So I was a bit worried that maybe he was going to cheat. But as we'll find out, probably not. Oh yeah, also just before I went into the game, like in the final hour before I went into the game, I stopped. I went from being like really nervous and really like cautious to like realize, you know, I'm 300 points higher than my opponent. I don't give a fuck, I'm going to win, which is not a good mindset to have. So that will also explain part of the game. Spoiler alert, fuck you, I don't care. E4, as we said. Wait, which scene should I go on? Do I go on the main or the puzzle? This'll do. So everything I said came true. He played e4 move 1, I just blitzed out c6. And then he thought for about 2 minutes. So I think my plan of getting him out of prep worked, because he was confused. He was like, what the fuck, why is this guy playing c6? So I assume he spent like a lot of time preparing c5, and when he saw c6, he probably just raged a little bit inside, and just had to take like 2 minutes to calm himself down. But all the prep I did before the game is I just looked at a few games in the lines I was going to play, looked through the opening repertoires, the opening lines, and yeah. So I had about 30 minutes of prep before the game. So d4, d5, e5, everything I said, I knew I was going to get advanced Caro, and I played c5, which is a line that it's a good line. Like Akaro's played it, Jan's played it, I think Magnus has played it. it's not a bad line, it's completely equal already, like on move 3. And he played the move c3. And I knew he was going to play c3 because he only ever plays c3. So I was quite happy, and I prepared the move knight c6. And I didn't really know what he would play because there's a lot of options you can play. You could, I guess, play like bishop d3, you could go knight d2, you could do whatever the fuck you want in this position. The main move here is knight f3, I believe, and that's what he played. And again, still in prep, I was like, right, I'll go bishop g4. And then he played bishop b5, which I think is a slight inaccuracy. But because I don't know these positions, I didn't know. So I spent a while, like, just trying to think, you know, what's my approach to this position. And I just reminded myself of everything. Is music still a bit higher? I'll turn that down. I remind myself of everything I always tell Ted when he's playing. And it's just, don't overthink. Play normal moves. So I was like, alright, fuck it, just play e6. I'm going to play e6 at some point. He's not actually threatening anything. If he takes, I'll take back with the bishop. Position's completely fine. After e6, he castled. And again, I thought a little bit here. I was mainly considering knight e7. That was what I was planning before he castled. But then I realized I have the move queen b6, which is always a nice move to play. I'm hitting the bishop, comes with tempo, and I'm applying pressure on this diagonal. And he's probably forced to take. And my idea was if he takes, I'm going to take back with the pawn. And I'm going to have the open b file. I'm going to be exerting pressure on the d4 pawn. I'm happy with this position. So I played queen b6. He took. I took back with a pawn. And then he took on c5. Which isn't a bad move. Because it led to me making a mistake. I mean, take on c5 immediately, for me, is okay. After bishop c5, I'm activating all my pieces. He played knight d2. And I knew the plan behind knight d2 was to go knight d3. So I was like, right, knight b3 doesn't throw anything, we can trade off. Fine, I've got decent center, I like my position. I don't mind giving back the bishop there. So I played knight e7. Just develop. And if you want to pause the video, I get my moment whilst I take a sip of my water. Knight e7 is completely fucking losing. It's +5 for white. And I did not see this until after the game when I looked at the analysis. Which is why I'm disappointed. Which is why I'm a bit disappointed in this game. There's a very easy move here for white. It just wins. It literally just wins. If you played this move, I would have lost the game and stood no chance. Because I can't beat a 1900 down a piece after the move b4. Just my bishop's trapped. Did not see that. Which is not good. Which is why I mentioned before I played, and I started to get a bit relaxed and I was a bit confident, I was blitzing out all of these moves. I just was not thinking whatsoever. I was just like, right, I'll play these moves, blah blah blah, everything's alright. It's +6. Like, there is, like, I would have just straight up lost. But, like I mentioned, his plan with knight d2 is knight b3. And I tunnel visioned on that, and thankfully so did he. So, I think he was probably a bit nervous, you know, he's like, oh, I'm playing at 2200, I'm just gonna play. He probably assumed he wasn't gonna win, which is maybe why he didn't look for these winning moves. It's like the famous Reshevsky game. I'm not comparing myself to Reshevsky, but Reshevsky, one of his opponents, I can't remember who, it was in like a candidates tournament, and Reshevsky blundered mate in 2. His opponent just had an easy mate in 2 and did not play it. And in the interview after, it's because his opponent said he didn't play mate in 2 because when you play Reshevsky, you don't look for mate in 2. So I imagine it's the same kind of logic. He just like didn't look to win a piece because he wasn't expected to be the blunder a piece, which I appreciate. So after this, I still hadn't seen b4, so I wasn't actually that mad at this point. I was like, oh, I'm fine, everything's okay. I just castled, knight c5, queen c5, and all of this I'd calculated previously after knight d2, so I was expecting bishop e3, queen b5 hitting the pawn, And then after b3, which I thought was a bit weird, I didn't like b3. Thing is, in the Carol, normally against b3 you can punish this with c5. But I didn't want to play c5 immediately because he's not really threatening c4 if I don't go c5, because he doesn't have the pawn on d4. So this isn't a big deal, so I didn't want to rush with c5. Here, the entire plan of going knight e7 for me is to go like knight g6 or knight c6, apply more pressure on this pawn. It's weak and it's hard to defend. So I went knight g6, and the line I calculated was knight d4, and I thought I was winning a piece if knight d4 happened. After takes, takes. If I take back, he takes back, and that's not good. And if I retreat, he also retreats. But I saw that there was a little Zwischenzug here with bishop e2, and I was like, ah, I'm winning a piece. And then I realized he has knight c7, and then after rook c8, he can go rook e1. And I can't keep my bishop on this diagonal to stop this knight from escaping to a6. So if I go bishop d3, he can go rook d1. Although maybe I could go like bishop c2, he goes like rook c1 or something. So I realized this probably wasn't right. But then I realized there also might be a chance of going takes. And after takes, throwing this desperado, if he retreats, I retreat my bishop, and if he takes my bishop, I take his knight, and I've won a pawn. So I seldom that, and I was like, okay, I can at least win a pawn in this line. But then after knight g6, he went a4. And I was like, what the fuck? Probably not the best move, because I have queen b8. Queen b8, just a nice move. I'm winning a pawn. You can't defend that pawn. If you go here, I can take, and I just won a pawn. So, fuck it. So after queen b8, he went rook e1. Inadvertently defending this pawn, kind of, but not really. And Engine, I think, just wants knight e5. I think knight e5 here is probably fine. But I wanted to go for bishop f3. So I threw in this as a move, expecting queen f3, knight e5, and then, like, I don't know, didn't really think past this point, to be honest. Like, I guess if we went queen d1, then, I don't know, rook d8 or something. I didn't calculate that. I was just like, I win pawn, I win. After bishop f3, he did something very weird. He did something very, very, very weird. He took with the pawn. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, what is this? And I was like, I figured, you know, is there a trick here if I take the pawn? So I had to weigh up between queen takes and knight takes, and almost immediately decided on queen takes. Bishop c5 looks good because it's attacking my queen and attacking my rook, but the line I calculated was check. If you go here, knight f4, and good luck defending this. So yeah, I went queen e5, expecting maybe he goes for some trick. Maybe he moves the bishop, and I figured, you know, bishop c5 doesn't work, so the move I was expecting was bishop d2. And after bishop d2, I was like, my idea was just queen h5, right? I'll just keep my queen on this side of the board. Didn't really have much of a plan. Yeah, just I'll probably win. I'm up a pawn. I'll be okay. But then he played f4, and I was like, again, what the fuck? Like, what is this? So again, I was like, is there a trick? So at first, again, I thought, you know, maybe knight f4, there's no idea with moving the bishop, right? There's no decent discoveries because it's the same check, and that actually just leads to mate if he moves the bishop. So I didn't really know what his idea was here. And then I saw some ghosts, and I was like, what about queen g4? And my problem was, the first move I considered was knight d3. And then I saw bishop h6, and I was like, oh wait, I can't go knight d3, I'm going to get mate. So then I was considering the move knight g6. But in this position, he would have bishop c5. And after takes, takes, and takes, I would probably actually be okay here, because it's an exchange for 2 pawns, and I've got a decent position. I would probably, I don't know what the engine thinks, but this is still winning for black. So that's not too bad, but I was like, alright, let's not overthink things. And I went back to my original move, Knight d3, bishop h6, I've just got queen f6. I'm hitting the bishop, I'm hitting the rook, and I'm threatening queen f2. And I realized, okay, everything's fine. No problems. But instead, after knight takes f4, he just went bishop takes f4 and traded down. And now I'm up 2 pawns. So I was like, okay, I can't really lose this position. So he went queen h5, and I was like, oh, right, I'm just going to try and trade queens. So I saw them with queen f6, threatening here, threatening this to trade the queens. So you pretty much got to defend the pawn. You can't do it with the queen. I guess you could go here. Ah, fuck it, I've got a check. Check's always winning. So he defended, I went queen f6, traded queens, he traded. Rook c1, rook f c8. Again, at this point, I was still trying to say in my head, everything I always tell Ted, just don't overthink things. I'm up 2 pawns, just play normal moves and I'm gonna win. And yeah, so rook c8, he didn't trade the rooks, which was a good idea. And I was like, right, just keep walking my king up, keep walking my king up. It's fine. And I was like, right, now I need to try and activate my rooks on the file, so I probably want to go for some rook lift. I think maybe rook c7 might have been better than the move I played. But I went rook c5, b4. And this is when things went a bit downhill for me. Which might be a bit weird if you've seen the game. But I played rook c4 check. And in my opponent's head, and in my head, the logic is rook trade force, pass c pawn, I win. Yeah. Problem is rook c4 is a shit move. But because my opponent had the same logic as I did, you know, pass c pawn, I trade rook up to pawn, I win, he resigned in this position. I looked briefly before, and it said king e3. But to be fair, I think I would have blundered this if I went rook c8, king d2, and just like started marching my king up. He would have had king c3, and it's a draw. And this is how I probably would have played the game if we went into this line. Like, I wouldn't have really thought too much about it. I would have done this, and engine says it's a draw, which is not nice. The winning plan would have been, I don't know. What would the winning plan have been? Like after b4, maybe just go back and then trade on my own terms. I've got two juicy pawns in the center. But yeah, my opponent resigned instead. Easy.